While the top item for tomorrow's meeting between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be Iran, Gaza, as was just pointed out, will be another issue that the two leaders will be discussing. On Sunday, a senior Hamas leader rejected the Trump administration's demand for the terror group to surrender its weapons, reportedly framing them as non-negotiable. Well, that was a part of the peace deal. So what could this mean for phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan? Joining me now to discuss this and a bit more, Congressman Pat Harrigan, a member of the House Armed Services Committee and the House Oversight Subcommittee. He represents the 10th Congressional District of North Carolina. Congressman Harrigan, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Tony, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
You know about dealing with terrorists. You know what Hamas is made of in your service in the Special Forces in the United States Army. What do you make of Hamas's refusal to disarm?
Well, I think it doesn't work. I think history has shown that you cannot manage Hamas. You have to completely remove their ability to wage terror operations against Israel and the Israeli people. And if you don't do that, you're not going to have anything that could be considered a durable peace. And so, as you mentioned in your initial monologue, this was a prerequisite for the deal. So to me, this would be Hamas breaking with the intended parameters of that deal, and is certainly not a good sign for the peace process in Gaza.
And President Trump, you know, he's stated this over and over, and I don't see him backing away from this. He said either you will disarm or we will disarm you. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think he's going to be like former President Obama that, you know, had that red line in erasable ink.
No, I agree with you, and I think your paraphrase was pretty darn good there. I don't think that provides anybody, whether the West, whether Israel, any options here. So I think certainly this is probably a negotiating tactic on behalf of Hamas. They want something here. But I think they also have to understand that if this is a hard line in the sand for them, it's entirely different than the overall framework of what this peace structure was supposed to look like. And they have to understand that they're gambling with fire.
How hard should we be leaning on our allies in the region, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others who were a part of arriving at this peace agreement?
We should be leaning on them very heavily. And I think that if we've learned any lesson over the last 30 years is that we can't really do anything alone in this area of the world. There's just so many different disparate perspectives, histories, and circumstances that they don't see things the same way that we do. And so oftentimes having that helping hand of our various different allies that we have in the region to kind of translate what we need to have happen and make it make local sense to those decision makers is incredibly helpful and productive. I don't think that we could have a durable peace without them. They're all players at the table here.
We're looking at Hamas, kind of a persistent problem. Obviously a threat, as we've seen on October 7th, but then the existential threat of Iran. What do you see coming out of these talks with Iran, and what are you hearing about President Trump and the Prime Minister meeting tomorrow?
Well, it's been pretty tight-lipped up until this point, but I would tell you that from the perspective of what Iran's posture and position ought to be here is that they should take a very serious look at what happened to the last foreign leader who had a carrier strike group parked off of their coast. Iran has got to come to the table here. I think when President Trump is really serious about something, he puts into place the initial machinations of America's ability to project very serious force into a region, and it's not for nothing. So Iran has got to pay very close attention here. I think it's very disconcerting that it does seem like they kind of blew through President Trump's instruction and warning not to harm their own people during this brief little uprising that has happened over the last couple months. I don't think President Trump is going to forget that. I do think that that was a red line to President Trump, and so Iran has got to be they got to be walking on eggshells right now. And if they're not, what happened in Venezuela should be very instructive to them and their leadership.
As I mentioned at the top of this interview, Congressman Harrigan, you served in the United States Army Special Forces. You dealt with terrorism. You dealt with this mindset. I think the Trump administration gets it better than most. But I was discussing this yesterday with a Iranian expert. We fail to understand that these folks they act according to their religious ideology. In the West, we kind of are. Not all of us, Christians, we believe our faith. It directs our life. It guides us. But so many in this diplomatic realm, they're dismissive of the impact that one's belief system has upon their actions.
Yeah, and you can't be dismissive of that. And you also have to understand that this type of radical ideology that sperms out of the Islamic faith is fundamentally incompatible with the way that we live and see things from our perspective in the West. And that cannot be understated in any of these negotiations. And so, look, that's why we've had such a hard time getting along with Iran for the last 40 plus 60 now.
They don't want to get around. They don't want to get along.
Right. They don't want to get along. And, they value death. And we value life and the purpose behind why God put us here on this earth. Those two things are fundamentally incompatible. It's a lot of the reasons that we have a lot of problems here, particularly in places like Dearborn, Michigan. We're starting to see in our own country these incompatibility of values that the founders envisioned for our country, that, we might disagree on the solutions to the problems that we have, but we're at least going to see the problems from the same value proposition and perspective. That's not the way the world works, unfortunately, and that's unfortunately also not the way our country's working anymore, Tim.
See, that's why I think it's so important to have men and women of faith, the faith that founded this nation, the Christian faith, so they understand the threats and are not dismissive of those who say, look, we want to wipe you out, we want to annihilate you, we want to eradicate you, whether by peace or by arms, or peaceful means by saturation or whatever. We got to take them at their word. All right, we just got about a little over a minute left, Congressman Harrigan. All right, are we going to make the deadline of some type of an agreement before a partial shutdown on Friday with Democrats over the Department of Homeland Security?
Boy, I hope so, Tony, but it seems like our recalcitrant Democratic friends are just intent on shutting the government down again, albeit this time a partial shutdown. I think that the Trump administration has actually stepped forward, and Republican leadership has also stepped forward in good faith with our Democratic colleagues. I think that there are some concerning things of what we've seen over the last month or so that can be brought back in and stay focused on the mission of deporting illegal aliens from this country, folks that shouldn't be here, folks that have criminal backgrounds, violent backgrounds in particular. I just think that there's an awful lot of area for agreement here. So to me, this shutdown should not occur. But if our Democratic colleagues choose to play politics here, which we know that they are because the 2026 election's coming quick, that could narrow the hopes for any type of agreement that avoids and averts a shutdown.
It's amazing how that works. Elections seem to shape people's thinking. Congressman, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tony. Great to be with you.